Welcome to Deep Look. It is Thursday, May 30th. Charlie Eisenhood alongside Keith Rayner as we recap an incredible college nationals for Madison, Wisconsin. The rain, the thunder, the lightning, it could not hold down what we knew coming in, Keith, could be a tremendous tournament. And we basically got everything we could possibly ask for besides more competitive finals. I mean, I think that's the only thing that you can really complain about as UNC Pleiades and Brownie in Motion take down the titles. Keith, what a weekend.
It was everything we expected, right? We got exactly what we had hoped for. We thought this could be an exciting weekend, and it honestly went above and beyond. Surprises even we couldn't have anticipated. We're laying in wait at what's going to go down as an all-time nationals. And in the media era, perhaps will be remembered as the greatest college championships that we've ever seen.
UNC over Stanford in the women's division. Stanford making an amazing run to get to the final and really just not having the answers necessary to take down this Don Colton-led UNC team. Stanford forced UNC to throw a lot of passes against that zone, but they were not able to generate a ton of turnovers, and UNC pulled away easily as they put a lot of defensive pressure on Stanford's offensive line, and ultimately cruised to a fourth straight victory. And we have so much to get to today. I don't want to jump ahead too much. Let's just start with that. We'll talk about Don Colton. We'll talk about this UNC dynasty as we get a little deeper into the show. Brown defeats Cal Poly SLO in the final. It's their first title since 2019. And they do it in a very similar fashion, Keith. They ride two amazing players and a strong cast of role players to another championship. It's the fourth in Brown's history, and Jacques Nissen gets his title.
Brown was the best team, despite the fact that they had two losses, including at Oregon State. But that's the kind of weekend that we had, particularly in the men's division. I mean, you want to talk about parity. There nobody emerged unscathed, but Brown played the best down the stretch. And you of all people, I think, had that as a possibility. So I feel like you get to take some sort of victory lap on BMO.
Listen,
but a real cap to a crowning career for Nissen.
They have an elite offense, and as we roll a tape here on the final moments of each of the games, Pleiades getting the turnover. I'll come back to my thoughts on Brown. Colton launches one. What a monster game Colton had, by the way. Into the end zone. That's it. 4 in a row for Pleiades. And, maybe they can get another one next year. It seems possible. Brown, toeing the line, getting the dub. And, man, what a program they've built in Providence. But it's offense, Keith. It's offense. They have two guys and a system that mean that they are going to hold against even the best college defenses 75 to 85% of the time, and that is good enough to win games against anybody.
And being able to cross over a couple of their top players pretty reliably, gives enough pop to their D-line. And credit to the guys who people don't talk about. They did their jobs. There were some nice performances by them. But obviously when you got two guys who were putting 50, 60 points on the board a piece, they're going to get a lot of the attention. So it's very strong showing from Leo Gordon and Jacques Nissen. But you're right. It's the system that has allowed these players to thrive. It's the right combination of game plan and talent. And Brown has found a great formula to work within the constraints of the talent that they have and maximize it. And that's all you can ask a great coaching staff to do and great team leadership. So BMO gets a lot of credit for not just, obviously having Jacques and Leo, but other teams had talented pairs of players, if not more, and couldn't get as much out of them as Brown got out of theirs.
Let's pause on the rest of this conversation for the moment because we will talk more about both UNC and Brown as we get into the show. Quick note, we hit 100,000 followers on Instagram. If you're not one of them yet, what are you waiting for? Go over to Ultiworld's Instagram page, hit that follow, check out all the clips we got coming out from Nationals there and on our YouTube channel. Congratulations to our 100K subscription giveaway winners for they get a year of subscription. It's Kate, Roni, Owen, Mason, and Layla. So congrats to you all. Thanks for following. Thanks for playing in the contest, and we hope you enjoy your subscription. Men, if you're watching us here on YouTube, make sure you like and subscribe while you're here. Great to have you with us. We're following the chat right along with you. Keith, it's time for our trivia question of the week.
All right, this week's trivia question of the week, we're keeping it simple because we just awarded 2 new Callahan winners. Congratulations to Georgia's Aiden Downey in the men's division and SUNY Binghamton. That's right, SUNY Binghamton. Raise your hand if you knew what a SUNY Binghamton was 5 years ago. Now, put your hand down, you liar. SUNY Binghamton's Jolie Krebs takes home the Callahan, representing the Metro East in the women's division. But, Charlie, you think you know what school has the most Callahan winners? And maybe we'll see how many of them you can name too, if you want to go for the full board. You think you figure out what school has the most Callahan winners?
Well, let me just quickly say congratulations as well to Aiden Downey from the University of Georgia for winning the Callahan. All right, some guesses that come to my mind: Colorado men's. They've got at least 2, if not more. I'll keep thinking on the women's side as you tell us a little bit about Sunset Lake CBD.
Okay. Charlie's going to think about it. And I'll tell you about Sunset Lake CBD and how they help me do some thinking too. Now Sunset Lake CBD, they grow high quality hemp products on their farm located right outside of Burlington. And they're a people focused company. When you call, you get to talk to a person. They take care of their employees who are majority owners of the company. So that all makes sense. They take great care with their products too. They only use what they grow themselves. They test regularly to make sure everything's safe and sound. Now, this past weekend, my picks were, let's say, imperfect. They were imperfect. But could anybody have seen what just happened coming? I don't think so. Nobody can see that. So I don't think it was due to a lack of clarity from like my Sunset Lake CBD focus gummies. Now they help me power through the workday when I got to sit down here in the virtual office and get a bunch of stuff done. They help me power through just like Don Colton powers through his zone defense or a perfectly positioned deep defender on double game point. So if you want your brain to perform at school or in the office, just like Don Colton performs on the field, Focus Gummies could be the move for you. You can find out for yourself. You can go to Sunset Lake today at sunsetlakecbd.com. Use our coupon code DEEPLOOK. That's one word, DEEPLOOK. You'll get 20% off your order. They'll know that we sent you, and that's Sunset Lake CBD, farmer-owned, Vermont-grown Sunset Lake.
All right.
Charlie,
my guess on the women's side, yeah, I've had a chance to think. My guess on the women's side, it's got to be some West Coast school, and it honestly might not even be one of the powerhouse teams. I feel like Santa Cruz has 2 or 3 Callahan winners, but I'm going to go with Stanford women's legacy program. Been doing it a long time.
What if you combine? If you did the combine, where do you think you'd guess?
Oh, both combined schools, men's and women's?
Yeah. What do you think you'd get?
Well, then I want to think about I don't know. There's it's probably not Carleton because they don't nominate people. That would be the obvious
They do have
guess.
some winners, but
Oregon.
They don't nominate people.
I would say Oregon. Probably Oregon.
Well, the answer for both the men's division question and the overall is tied for, or no, sorry. The answer for is the same. That's Brown. Brown has the overall lead in the category and in the men's division. They have
Well, but have
5
they ever
men's
had
division
a
winners
women's
and
winner?
one women's division winner.
Oh,
Paidea's own Pauline Lauterbach in 2002
okay.
did win. 5 men's winners. Names you
Wow.
probably know, like John
Zip,
Randolph
Mac,
or Josh
Randolph.
Zip. No Mac.
Mac didn't win.
Aziz.
That's right. Aziz. I
Aziz.
forgot about Aziz.
And
I
then
would not have guessed that. I
the
forgot about
greatest name in
Aziz.
the greatest name in Ultimate history, baby. Fortunat Mueller, Forch, as well as
Legends.
Justin Safdie, back-to-back years. That said, you had some good guesses. Colorado has Mickle and Ackley as well as Alex
Did
Snyder.
Bo not win?
Oregon, pardon? No, Bo did not
Bo
win.
never. He didn't win, did he?
Oregon has Freechild, Eli Friedman, Ben Wiggins, Chelsea Dengler, and Jody DeZono. So I think they
Okay,
come
that
up
was a good
second
guess, Keith.
with,
That was a good guess.
5. So that was a good guess. I believe just if you just take women's division, I think it's I think it's a bunch of ties with 3.
Yeah.
North Carolina has 3. So I think UNC has 3 with Leela Tennell, Don Colton, and Worth. But then
nice.
you got a bunch of 2s, a bunch of schools with 2, like Dartmouth or Washington. So there's a bunch of schools with 2. Stanford has 2. So there you go. There's Brown has the win, and it's not just the men's division team. Pauline Lauterbach will not be erased. Not for me.
I love it. All right. Well, it's time to get into the craziness of this tournament. And normally, Keith, when we do a recap episode, we talk about the finals, and then we talk about the semis, and then maybe we talk a little bit about the quarters. Right? When we're recapping tournaments week to week, we're not starting there. We're going back to the beginning of this craziness. Okay. Day 1, 2 games of pool play completed. I shouldn't say 2 games, 2 rounds. And a bunch of teams didn't even play due to just nonstop lightning and rain. So then they completely rejiggered the tournament, and they play all of the rest of pool play on day 2. They rejiggered the tournament again because of potential impending thunderstorms. Luckily, we got no lightning on Sunday. We did get a lot of rain. Some of the most intense rain I've ever seen Ultimate played in on Sunday. So they instead of staggering the semis at the stadium, they kept them at the fields and they played them, 30 minutes apart. So we had 2 games happening simultaneously on adjacent fields. I mean, honestly, it was a wonderful spectator experience if you don't count the weather. And so it was just a wild weekend. Only the finals played in the stadium. But we're going back to pool play because, Keith, this was just a crazy start to the tournament. And let's throw up some pool play results here and take a look at how things broke down. Now, some stuff straightforward enough. This is women's division. Carolina goes 4-0. Sure, all good. But Keith, look at these results. UBC gets upset. Carleton gets upset. You got the bottom seeds of the tournament winning two games in pool play. What is happening?
It was that Madison Madness, baby. We got 2 3-way ties. You get the big upsets at the top of Pool A and Pool C. Bing, despite defeating UC Santa Barbara, gets crushed by Oregon, who also lost pretty handily to UC Santa Barbara. And through that unfortunate chain of events, didn't get into the bracket, almost forcing me to boycott the tournament. So that was a sad affair, but not for lack of Jolie Krebs heroics.
But I mean, Tufts getting the win over UBC, kind of like signaling that UBC was going to have some trouble, as we kind of thought maybe coming in, given the injury situation, might be a problem. But I mean, talk about Binghamton. Jolie Krebs. It feels like she didn't win the Callahan Award this weekend because of her play at Nationals, but she could have.
Kind of.
If you had just done a vote only from the weekend. Their layout D from Krebs, a ridiculous number of assists. What does she end with? 38, I think, tying the all-time record.
I've never seen a player go every other basically for a whole tournament.
Did you just see what happened right there?
Yes. So this is universe point against Santa Cruz. Wild layout D when she should have been totally out of gas, and then I guess the fatigue plays into like that little max scenario. which we believe was incorrectly ruled the travel.
Yes, we
As she
looked at the rules.
she tried to throw
it's
it.
legal. She threw
So
it
you can hit it
badly. It had no
once.
spin. She then tapped it forward to get it to her teammate, and that is legal in the rule book. I can't believe
If
that's legal.
you could hit it once. You can't hit it multiple times, but you can hit it once.
That is so crazy. I feel, but isn't it the case that once you release the throw, that the next person to touch the disc has to be your teammate or somebody from the other team? Like you can't touch it again.
The next person to catch it has to be another person. The person who released it can I believe the exact language was like can brush or deflect. I can't remember what the other word was. The other verb can brush the disc once, cannot do it multiple times. So I guess this counts as a brush of the disc, right?
Okay, I'm looking it up. The AI has the overview for me. The Google AI. I'm not sure how I feel about
definitely
that.
nothing could go wrong there.
Okay. In addition, purposeful bobbling to oneself in order to advance the disc in any direction from where it was contacted is illegal. But it's not to oneself. So you're allowed to do that, and it's not a travel. You're just not allowed to do it to you can't use it. You can't like bobble the disc intentionally into the end zone. What a wild scene. So anyway, they get the win on Universe there. Krebs was unbelievable this weekend. I mean, I think she's pretty easily a lock for an All-America first team, Keith. And the question is, how high in the Player of the Year conversation will she be? Because I think there's a case.
I mean, I think the award itself feels pretty locked up in my mind. Maybe someone will convince me otherwise when the staff debates, but like, come on. But after the first place vote, I will say, I feel like there's not a necessarily like clear grouping after that, which feels like that favors something like Krebs getting in, despite her team missing the bracket, and having a pretty middling regular season. I think she's probably going to land on the podium. I think when all the voting's said and done, I'm not saying specifically that my podium will have her in the top 3, but I do think that she has a real chance of landing on the podium.
Last note on the women's pool play. I mean, Stanford beating Carleton felt like this shock upset until Stanford continued to get shock upsets and go all the way to the final. So that was kind of a harbinger of what was to come. Let's take a look at the men's pool play results. Just as crazy. I mean, top of Pool C, Minnesota gets the upset win over UMass to take the pool, and not just upsetting them, absolutely crushing them in that game. You've got, bottom seeded teams getting wins. Oregon State goes 2-2. Wash U beats a hapless Carleton who goes 0-4. It was wild, Keith. Michigan 2-2, making the bracket.
Yeah, Michigan came out firing. America's team went 0-4 after some talk that they can make semis on shows like Deep Look, which why would you listen to those guys? Oregon State really beat like
that
the same tournament
where they won a
national
championship. Look back
on.
Oregon State beats Brown in a game that they wanted to win. What?
Pittsburgh loses on double game point twice to the top 2 finishers in the pool. Once coming from behind and then once being usurped on a comeback. Like, I don't know.
Brutal, man. I feel like they never recovered from that. They kind of got worked by Oregon a little bit in pre-quarters. Let's take a look at the clip of Minnesota beating Pitt. This was something else. Universe, they send it up. It's a jump ball, absolute dunk, monster spike right in their face, gets a yellow card. But whatever, the game is over.
Somebody argued that the observer's jurisdiction was they were out of their jurisdiction. Game's over. You can't give the card out.
How do you feel about that spike? I mean, people are definitely talking about it.
I can't be for that. He literally spiked it on the guys. Like, I get the whole like, oh, if you don't want me to celebrate, don't let me score kind of thing. But We play a sport where that's not the culture. You walk away, you spike it somewhere else. All you have to do is turn it in the other direction rather than spike it on them.
Yep.
I also will say, I don't want this to come off as like a toxic masculinity, like machismo thing, but it is kind of soft to spike it on two people. Be there long enough to see them protest and then run away to your teammates, like scamper away, like you're getting away with something. Stand there and defend it
And stare them
like,
down.
Like,
Try to get it into a fight.
At least,
is that what you want?
Like, or make peace or something, but don't run away. Like, don't run away. I think that's a bad look. All that said, like, mostly, I don't think Austin King is like being malicious there. He's hyped up. He wants to be with his teammates. So I don't think it's as big a deal as people made it out to be, but I'm not for it. I'm definitely against it.
To me, that's exactly how it should have played out. Got a yellow card, and it was an unsportsmanlike move for sure.
Yeah.
That's not how you want to celebrate a win, by like essentially taunting your opponent in that spot. I have no idea if there was some history in the matchup or something. Sometimes that happens and you don't really know about it. And like if the guy had been jawing to him all game and then he scores the game winner over him, I kind of get it. But if it was just out of nowhere, which it kind of looked like it was, since the pit guy was like, "What the hell, man? You just beat us on Universe. You don't need to rub it in." But you know what? I don't know. To some extent, I'm like, I get it. It's just a monster play, and you're super hyped up. And what a win for Minnesota. It looked like Minnesota was the team to beat for a while there, as they absolutely demolished UMass and on the showcase field. Shout out to USA Ultimate, by the way, for letting us flex games into that final round so that we could not watch meaningless Carleton game. That was great, being able to watch that one. I mean, Minnesota, that's probably the best game I've seen them play ever in my life. Their offense was unbelievable. Unfortunately, the story came to an end against Colorado the next day. But any other notes on pool play, Keith?
No, I think we covered it all, and there's a lot to get to in the bracket too.
I know, but I got a couple more clips I want to show real quick. First of all, let's take another look at Minnesota. This one comes from Paul Krennick against UMass on the showcase field. They lob it up, one-on-one, absolutely dunking on his defender. That is as good as it gets, Keith. Krennic is really good. And then he's going full ape mode. Oh. Hit your chest, young man.
Yeah, he's looking like Caesar out there. I mean, people knew what PK is about. So great to see him show out at Nationals, because obviously the guy's a real playmaker, and that was nasty stuff. That was nasty work.
However, the number one clip of the weekend, more than 100,000 plays on Instagram Reels. Take a look. A little UAH score. Jonathan Sullivan pulls out of the pocket. He's got a hot dog. He's going to crush that right there on a stream. The top comment is something like, pulling out a glizzy on Memorial Day weekend is a real power move.
I mean, you got to love it. That's why you're America's team. Like, sure, you didn't win any games, but you won the people's hearts. Although, you got to wonder about how long was he playing with a hot dog in his pocket, right? Like,
yeah, I don't know where that happened in the game.
What if he doesn't score? Like, what if he goes the whole game without scoring and just played a game with nobody else knowing that he had a hot dog in his pocket? Like, that's weirdo behavior, right?
It definitely is weird. So I was like, what if he got skied and a hot dog fell out of his pocket?
What if he skied somebody and the hot dog popped out of his pocket and went directly into his opponent's face? Like, does he get a card?
EMF in the chat says that allegedly there was a bunch of bad calls and that guy fouling the Minnesota dude that whole game. So valid spike. That's exactly what I'm saying. Spikes like that usually don't come out of nowhere unless you're like just a real jerk. So if the guy was being bad behavior all game and he got what was coming to him, I don't mind the yellow. I mean, but you earned it.
You don't think it's very easy for me to see that spike happening without any prior extracurriculars just because it's an exciting moment. People get hyped up.
Maybe.
I am not even the way that it went is not like a big deal to me. I don't think like Austin King's like an unspirited jerk for that. I just think ideally you just turn the other direction and spike in the other way. Like I
hear you.
I don't know.
I hear you.
Not that big a deal.
Connor in the chat says it was his first point with it in his pocket, which is amazing if true. Like, I'm going to go out here. I'm going to get this goal right now. I'm going to eat this hot dog.
Call your shot.
Exactly what
you're going to be like, I got to score because I have a hot dog in my pocket right now.
All right, let's keep it moving. Bracket time. Let's go back to the women's division. Take a look at the bracket. Here's how it went down. We had the pre-quarters up all the way through. This doesn't have the final result on there for Pleiades Stanford, but Colorado mopping it up. I mean, the pre-quarters were not super close in general. UBC had a tightish game with UC Santa Barbara. But man, Keith, the quarters and the semis rounds were just absolutely spectacular.
Just drama all the way through. So much hype. Like you and I were, I've never been so glad to be wrong. Like we thought Tufts was going to take down Colorado. I think Tufts sadly will get overlooked for their performance this weekend. I think they showed they belong, but obviously didn't get the big win. My Oregon pick didn't come true, but obviously that led to Stanford bringing some craziness to the forefront. UNC survives back-to-back universe games on their way to the title. Like this was not a light jaunt. They didn't jog through the field this year. There's numerous different pathways that could have resulted in UNC getting eliminated along the way, but they survive in the clutch. And then you get the ridiculous, both semifinals, ridiculous comebacks. Like each one of those in its own, on its own would have like been defining for the weekend. And I'm at home for Miles' birthday. I go out for a walk with him and Jules. I come back. Stanford has like tied it up with Vermont. Like I literally turned the game off. Like it was done. It was curtains. I was watching the other game because due to the weather conditions, they had to be simultaneous or staggered simultaneous. So I turned it off and then I got to go back and go rewatch it because it's like, how did that just happen?
Craziness, dude. I mean, it's 8-4 at halftime. Vermont up. And they come out and they get 2 break chances at 8-4 coming out of half. They don't get the break. And then they give up back-to-back breaks. Stanford gets back within 1, then a hold for both teams, and then a break for Stanford to get it to level at 9-9. And then they break to go ahead at 11-10. Vermont finally breaks back, their first break since they went up 6-2 with a 3-break run in the first half. But then they end up getting broken on Universe to lose. And I mean, what is crazy, Keith, is that like you look at Stanford in this game, their star offensive centerpiece, Esther Filipek, had 1 assist and 17 turnovers. Those are real stats. And yet they won this game. It was a complete and utter disaster for Vermont to lose this game. And unfortunately for them, this has been the story of this team. Too many brutal turnovers, and you can't ask for worse than on the final point. We'll watch right here. This is Universe. It's hard to watch.
I'm not going to watch. I'm closing my eyes.
If you're on YouTube, we're watching right now. They bring it to the brick.
Handler,
okay, check it in. We're checking it in. Stanford zone, really tough. Little dish back to Emily Posey.
No.
She point blank drops a reset right in her chest.
No.
Just straight up drops it. Like doesn't watch it into her hands, kind of fumbles. And then it's just like essentially immediate red zone for Stanford. I mean, this is brutal. It's brutal stuff.
I mean, it's absolute worst case scenario, right?
Oh, yeah. Absolute worst case.
I guess dropping the poll. When the poll goes out of bounds, it's the worst case scenario.
Macy Wolbrecht, what a baller. 5 blocks, 7 assists, basically playing on the D-line, and just an incredible performance from a couple of key players on Stanford. McGinley Smith was fantastic as well. She had 3 goals, 5 blocks, no turns. But I mean, look, this was Vermont's game to win. They were clearly the better team for the majority of this contest, and then they just started coughing it up. They rely too much on deep balls to McCarthy or McCarthy throwing deep balls, and they stopped playing offense and started just hucking up prayers.
Well, so I want to go to the chat for a couple things that have one that has to do with this. But just before we continue on this, I want to know, someone at least named Jonathan Sullivan has appeared in the chat and confirmed the hot dog story. So if you have more hot dog questions, chat, the man himself is here. All that said, EMF just said, do you guys think the weather impacted all these huge comebacks on the same day? And I will say, I believe it was a coach of another team in the bracket told me, when I saw the forecast, I knew Stanford was going to do well. And this game was played in some of the worst weather conditions of the entire weekend that were playable, like the worst non-lightning weather conditions.
For sure.
So Stanford's comeback, when you contextualize it a little bit, makes a little more sense when you think of the team that like really just runs zone against the team that throws jump balls. But don't forget that we were, however far away the Uline Soccer Complex was, we were not that far away when we watched Kenny McCarthy just roof the deep in this zone like 10 straight times for Vermont to beat Stanford in quarters. It was not that long ago that happened. So this must have been some real sweet revenge for Stanford after that type of loss.
Unbelievable. On the other side, UNC Colorado's got a pretty big lead, Keith. I think it was 13-9
in a 13-9 in a game that ended at 14.
Holy crap. Colorado gives up a 5-0 run to lose. And I mean, that's hard to stomach. I mean, you just don't see that. But we saw multiple 5-0 run wins this weekend. I mean, we're going to get to men's in a second, but what happened to Colorado down the stretch, Keith?
Don Colton happened. Don Colton happened all over them. I mean, it was a real like call an ambulance, but not for me kind of situation. I mean, a 5-0 run.
And this is how it ended, Keith.
And then this is the dagger. A prayer, a Hail Mary, a trust ball.
Oh my God, dude, what an insane play. And
it
looks like, okay,
the
defender's in position. The defender's there. Defender comes away with the disc, and Dawn's like, no. I got stripped. And watch it again. Watch it right here. She got it first, Keith. The legend, Dawn Colton, the college GOAT, first player ever to 4 titles as a college player. What a ruling by the Observer as she goes crazy. I mean, come on, that's just as good as it gets.
I mean, this is one of the greatest plays in college ultimate history. Universe point, scored 4 in a row. You need one more. You throw a terrible huck, and the defender has great position, and Colton makes the play without fouling her. I don't want to hear any of this nonsense. I saw some Instagram comments about how this is a foul. Watch that again. Dawn does so much to ensure that there is not illegal contact. Whatever contact happens is incidental. Amazing, absolutely amazing. And for it to be like the narrative just is so thick in that moment. I fell on the floor. Miles is like, why is Daddy on the floor right now? Like, absolutely ridiculous stuff. Hero GOAT stuff. Like, you got to think about Dawn Colton as the greatest college player of all time right now. You've got to think about it at least. You may not have decided, but it's got to be a part of the conversation for her career.
Dawn was like, call an ambulance, but for Keith Rayner, who's lying on the ground with his child worrying about him.
Oh man, that was incredible.
Holy smokes, dude. I mean, the whole day was insane. But incredible performance from UNC. They completely unlocked the Stanford zone the next day. And Stanford's offense, which already was not looking sharp against Vermont, had no chance against the pressure that UNC was able to bring. And, in a lot of ways, Stanford had to kind of be given some gifts from Vermont to get back into that semifinal. Those gifts were not there for them in the championship game, and I just think there was not really a realistic chance for Stanford to win that game. Keith, I was surprised that you took Stanford plus 2.5 when we talked about it before the game happened. Like, I felt like this was much more of what kind of like the game path that I expected.
Oh, really? I think this broke in a way that when like I thought UNC had the advantage, but that it was going to be slight and a close game. And like if you take out the fact that Stanford's offense was basically horrendous for 2/3 of the game, like horrible throwaways,
Brutal.
terrible field position errors, like you have to say that like it was basically as bad as they could play for part of that way. And UNC's offense for the first half was absolutely perfect. Like they had
Yep.
so few errors along the way, and it normalized a little bit in the second half for UNC's offense. So like I think if you make UNC's offense like a little more normal and Stanford's offense a little more normal, like my prediction would have been probably pretty close to what happened. I think a Stanford 2-point loss is like kind of exactly what you draw, but because you had like the extreme outcomes in both ends of that is why you got a game that didn't feel
Yeah.
that close. I do also want to take 1 second to credit UNC for winning the semifinal essentially without Erica Birdsong and the final more or less without Teresa Yu. So you take away an All-American in each of those games,
Top three
and they
players on the team.
still pull out the wins.
Yep.
I mean,
Unbelievable.
that says a lot about the program.
Esther Philippek with another double-digit turnover game in the final. She had 11 turns on 3 assists. Just a tough weekend for the centerpiece. I think she's got a ton of skill, a ton of potential, and I think we'll learn from this weekend. Stanford's going to be right back here again next year. I don't know who they graduate, Keith, but I think we could see Stanford as a real championship contender over the next season or two.
We're certainly going to learn not to write him off. But yeah, I mean, Philippek, I am sympathetic to the fact that handlers absorb a lot more turnovers than cutters, and that especially if you're the handler who's asked to make a lot of difficult throws like Philippek is, the turnovers are going to be part of the game. The tape does not support that like general narrative. These were like resets, unders, like simple stuff, not stuff that Philippek is very much capable of executing on, and just not a good game. Not a strong effort on her part. They did switch her over to defense, and she is also a good defender. That was a smart adjustment from Stanford in the second half, and let her continue to make an impact on the game in some positive way. Having Macy Volbrecht and Kiana Hu step up was vital for Stanford, but they obviously would have benefited a lot from having their All-American handler on a heater rather than in the cold streak.
Yep. All right, let's talk men's. Let's put up the bracket and take a look at what we had happen over here. I mean, just already from the jump in pre-quarters, it was crazy. Maybe the most shocking result of the entire men's college season happened in pre-quarters. NC State defeats UMass 14-13. What in the world, Keith?
Are we sure? Like, is this a score reporter error? Like, I know I watched it happen, but I still don't believe it. You know, Daniel Farrader could chat. I saw him in the chat. He was here, but
That's a
I
game
still like
that
can't believe what it.
that's a game. Let's roll the tape from Universe. This is a game that you would probably put a UMass -4 or maybe -5.5 point spread on. Like a win
this is a
here for
three-quarter
NC
blowout.
State. Yeah. I mean, you're expecting this to be like 15-9. Like, good season for NC State. Thanks for coming. But instead, UMass even gets the ball on Universe, by the way.
And
I don't know.
Here,
The
a turnover
wheels
by
just went
Wyatt
off
Kelman.
for this team. The wheels just went off for the team this weekend. Kelman didn't look right the whole weekend. I think he was still hurt, Keith.
I heard some people say that. I thought he looked okay in the game that I saw him against Pitt. he was kind of cooking back then, but he did not continue to play well throughout the weekend, which is, I think, also he does not have to be hurt for that to happen. These are 22-year-olds or whatever. Like, they're gonna play inconsistently. I can't. I
NC
still
State
like. I'm
acting like
telling
they
you, I
just
was
won the
watching this. I can't believe
championship.
it.
That was wild. Look at this. Look at these numbers. 97.8% of people picked UMass to get to quarters in the Beat Charlie Challenge, including yours truly. 1.4% picked NC State. All of them play for NC State. No, I'm kidding, but maybe. I mean, wow.
I mean, it's less than NC State has like on their O line. It's fewer people than that. So, not even all the NC State people were back at NC State.
Wild. Just wild. Let's keep digging in here. Let's go back to the bracket if we can. Great. So we get to quarters. What a game between UNC and Oregon. Every game besides Cal Poly, NC State was interesting and tough. I see there's a typo there. Minnesota should be listed as losing 15-12 to Colorado. The right team advancing, but not the right scoreline there. But wow, I mean, how about Darkside going up against it against Oregon? And then, Keith, the internet was very upset because they felt like Carolina was calling some nonsense at the end of this game.
Am I the internet, Charlie? Because I also was upset by what I was watching. You get the stunner, Oregon to semis, which I called, so I was obviously emotionally invested as well. Oregon to semis, they complete the deep shot to Micah Glass, game winner, and then it's undone. We gotta go back for
stall called.
A stall call from Eli Freed on the mark back on, I think it was Raekwon Atkins who had the disc. And then there's people have then gone back and recorded this stall call and saw it was like around 7 seconds in duration, the actual time that this 10 seconds is counted off. Then Freed proceeds to totally to his credit, get an absolutely maniacal on mark block. They've tried to huck it immediately again, and he just lays out. I don't know if he hit it with his face or his hands or both, but totally ridiculous block on the mark. Then UNC turns it again. Oregon gets it again. They break through the UNC defense. It looks like they're going to fast break. They have like two guys in space being defended by one person, and they're just going to pass it back and forth, run it to the end zone. And another stall call. And again, the internet times this one, and it's like under 7 seconds this time.
Tough.
UNC gets a reset turnover by Oregon. UNC goes the other way. They score. They win the game. Everyone is mad.
Yeah, I mean, people, adrenaline's high. You count fast. Observers didn't make a ruling, by the way. I think the question is like, if you went and you counted every stall in USAU play and you timed it, most of them are going to come in 7 to 8 seconds of actual time. People stall count faster than actual seconds. So I don't know if I'm quite as outraged, especially by the first stall call. I get it. It sucks. But like when you have multiple chances, I think you simply have to play through it and put it into the end zone.
I mean, I get it. At the time, I was way more emotional about it because they had the game-winning score in their hands, like they were celebrating. I think that adds a lot of emotional weight, and like in the NFL, they say there's holding on every play, but like that sometimes you're gonna get called for it, right? Like just because the rule is broken often doesn't mean that it doesn't feel bad when the rule is broken again, let alone twice on the same point, on universe point, to take away the win. So like I understand and am sympathetic to the idea that these were not like aberrational types of calls, like bad calls. Many stall counts are too short. I pride myself, for the record, on being a full 10-second stall counter. I like to use my basketball referee timing. But most people, they get excited. They get to stall 6, and like it's kind of okay then. And then
And then
the rates
ratchets
just
up.
ratchet up. So 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We're going. But I mean, it looks bad. There's no way around it. They said I counted to 10 seconds in less than 10 seconds. Like, I don't know. There's not that much more to argue. Yes, Oregon, that was not why Oregon, I'm never one to say like that's why Oregon lost the game. They had their chances. They didn't come through. But
all right, we're gonna watch here
tough scene.
on YouTube. Hammer goes up, drops it in, and that's it. Carolina gets the win. Oregon had their chances, but man, look, UNC was already a villain coming into the weekend. Nobody wanted to see UNC
For
win
sure.
again. They won 3 in a row. People are tired of it. So then this happens, and now they go on to play slow in semis. The game of the tournament, the game of the year, maybe. One of the games of all time in college ultimate, perhaps. Just some epic commentary from Evan Lepler, some incredible moments, some incredible scenes, colossal mistakes from both teams. It had all the drama, all the fans, and every single person besides Dark Side parents and family were rooting for Cal Poly. I am telling you. Let's watch the end of this one. The slow. It didn't go to Universe, Keith. Carolina had given up a bunch of breaks in a row. They were down 1. They cough it up again. Slow gets it. And look, I mean, just look at these sidelines. Packed. College ultimate is as meant to be.
13-10, and they have come from behind to absolutely stun the reigning champions. Cal Poly Slow is going to the finals for the first
Guys
time
collapsing to the
ever.
ground.
And
The crowd rushes the field. I mean, I felt like I was watching March Madness, Keith.
It's going to be an indelible one. You don't see that UNC team crumble like that very often.
Yeah, you really don't. They just looked a little rattled down the stretch, and they just couldn't put together the offensive possessions late in that second half after having done it for not even just this tournament, but for their entire lives as a team. I mean, most of these guys have known nothing but winning at nationals. I don't even like when is the last time UNC lost a non-intentionally thrown game at college nationals? I don't even know. And it's probably 2019 when they lost in the final to Brown. Wild.
Shocking. It was
shout out
shocking.
to Seamus Robinson, who had 4 goals and an assist on just 2 turnovers. Anton Orm, 2 goals, 4 assists, and a block on 3 turns. Calvin Brown had an impactful game, but also had 10 turnovers. But, he hit some just critical shots late.
And
it was a little give and
this
take
was
with
another
them.
game played in disgusting conditions. Like for a
Brutal.
period of time, I mean, it was gushing rain.
Yep. On the other side, Brown pretty comfortably handles Colorado. I mean, they looked really sharp in this one. Nissen, 3 goals, 7 assists, 2 blocks. Leo Gordon had 6 assists and a pair of goals. Yes, you're counting correctly in a score to 15. Nissen and Gordon had 13 of their assists. Those guys are pretty good. Just like all around super clean game. Similar crap weather and 4 turns each from Gordon and Nissen, which is really not bad. It felt to me, Keith, like Colorado just didn't have the answers at that level to cover those guys or to play offense at the level required. I mean, Tobias Brooks looked like their best player as a rookie. He's obviously special. He's going to be a phenomenal player that keeps them relevant for many years to come. But he also had some big mistakes in big spots.
Indeed, that they looked a little bit outgunned in that matchup, and I think it feels a little simplistic to be like, well, they couldn't defend the Brown offense and they couldn't operate at the same level either, so they lost. But that did kind of feel that way when you were watching it.
So I JD in the chat point. He said 2017 for UNC's last loss. Now it was definitely 2019 when they lost to Brown in the final. But think about that. They lost a game in 2017. Was that semis that year? It must have been, because they've been in semis like a zillion years in a row. Then they lost in the final in 2019, and then they lost in the semi in 2024. Those are their last 3 meaningful losses at nationals. How crazy is that? Wilmington got them in 2017.
They've been very good. I mean, this does not take the shine off of their program, but maybe it pulls back the intimidation factor.
So, other thoughts, Keith, on the Brown Colorado game?
I mean, they continue to get great results, obviously from Leo and Jock. But I think everybody had to be impressed with what we saw from Cal Nightingale, from Emmett Young defensively for them. I think that Brown, this was honestly about as well, I think, as we ever saw Brown play. Like, for the conditions for them to operate at the level that they were operating at was probably like a sign that they were playing their best game. And it's funny to see a team that got just housed by UNC the day prior and lost to Oregon State, then turn around and play like this in semifinals.
Yeah, I mean, they only gave up 7 O-line turns, and considering the conditions, that's an amazing number. Colorado had 13
they were
turns.
not even like clearly going to beat Michigan. Like, they were in a close game with Michigan in pre-quarters. If they had lost to Michigan, is that a bigger upset than NC State over UMass? I don't think so, but
there's been a question buzzing around the Discord a little bit. Who is the best team at nationals? I'm like, there's a kind of like an argument that, like, well, obviously Brown, because they won the tournament. But Brown also lost to Oregon State. They were in a very tight game with Michigan. Like, was Carolina still the best team? Like, if you ran this whole simulation again, does Brown win it again? I think it's a little bit about matchups.
Wait, why isn't Slow the best team? Who did they lose to?
I mean, fair. I mean, Carolina outplayed them for most of that game, Keith.
Yeah, I don't know if that's how that works. I mean, the ultimate, I think, conclusion of that argument, at least to me, was somebody saying, yeah, it would be great to be the best team, but nobody goes to nationals to be the best team. They go to win the tournament. So, like,
yeah, no,
don't get it twisted.
I hear that. I'm not getting it twisted. I'm not trying to take anything away. I think it just goes to show you that, like, you look at the windy, rainy, crap conditions, and teams that either play in similar conditions and are comfortable in it, like Brown, or have a very strong zone defense, like the Stanford women, maybe outperformed what we might have seen from them in a track meet conditions.
I think this might be some confirmation bias, because
maybe
I can think of a team who plays in really crappy conditions, famously plays in crappy conditions, and despite me picking them in the game, couldn't win a single pool play game. Cut. So I'm just saying.
Why did you pick Cut? That made no sense ever. You could have picked Minnesota.
Cut or Minnesota. Cut or Minnesota.
Well, how about you take the team that dominated like the Carleton matchup all season?
They weren't playing head to head. Look at Carleton's resume coming into nationals.
Carleton's gift is choking away their talent on the field. This is what they do. Once in a while, they win a championship, and then the other years sometimes they don't even make nationals, Keith. The Plumbers and Farmers from the University of Wisconsin beat them at regionals.
Charlie, I think they have more great recruits coming, so get ready for more cut hype.
Their Cut's recruiting class this season is crazy. I think they could definitely win a title in 2 or 3 years, but how will they figure out how not to?
Do you? Yeah, do you really think so, or will they be the number 1 seed in 2 or 3 years?
Yeah, we'll see what happens. They definitely have some stars coming in. All right, to the final. Brown. They just had the answers, Keith. Cal Poly slow. I thought that their defense was going to have a solution to the Nissen and Gordon show, and they really didn't. And
I didn't think that.
the struggles of the kind of like swirly wind in the stadium, we never saw Cal Poly Slow's offense look right. And they really they were just not in the game. They got thoroughly outplayed. It never felt that close. Slow actually got the first break to go up 2-2, but then it was 3 breaks to get to 7-4 for Brown, and that was it. We never saw Slow get another break. They only got that early one, and I mean, what can you say? I mean, just a tremendous performance from Jacques Nissen once again. 5 assists, 2 goals, a block, and just 2 turnovers.
I believe in our pre-final show, like I said, I don't know if Slow has somebody to match up with Leo and Jacques. So I was worried about that from the beginning. Slow's ticket was going to be playing fantastic offense, and maybe working that deep game well. Make your O points short, cross your D line guys over to O, which they ended up doing a lot anyway. But keep those guys fresh. Keep throwing legs at Jacques and Leo. That felt like the recipe to me, and the offense was just not there. They could not connect well enough. Some of it was nerves. I think they had some really brutal drops. They floated some passes in that win that you mentioned that just resets or crossfield throws that I think usually you would expect them to complete, and they struggled in the wind. And that was, it's funny. I think that was kind of the both the women's division final and the men's division final was a team that could go out there and execute in the conditions, in this scenario, in that setting, go out there and execute offensively and just wear you down and say, okay, if you can't execute this level, you're going to lose. And both UNC and Brown did that. We can complete basically everything that you're going to give us. So you either are going to take it away from us or you're going to play this level of offense or you're going to lose.
Yep. I think that's well said. Nate asks, how swirly was the wind in the stadium? Here's the thing. I was talking to some folks who go to a lot of Radicals games in Bree Stevens, and I've played there too. They said the wind on the side closest to where all the concessions and stuff are and the covered part of the stadium has very little wind. But the other end zone is really windy. So it's like different wind conditions depending on where you are on the field. And so I think it was obvious that Slow was struggling with that because they were doing little quick like give and go type throws, and they were just popping stuff up into the air, and like that's a recipe for disaster.
Indeed. They were not, it's hard. It's not like Brown has a ton of like familiarity with the specific conditions of Bree Stevens, but we do know that they play in the wind because Coach Nate Taylor with an extremely tight ESPN Zoom, like uncomfortably, I was way too close to his face.
I heard about that. I didn't
as he
see
said
that.
in their interviews. They're very comfortable playing in kind of swirly conditions, which is great for your small ball centric offense. So yeah, Brown looked really good. I think that they brought a great energy. They clearly were the better team in that final. So hats off to Brown for sure. And I mean, again, is there ever been a year in which you can remember in which the player of the year in both divisions was just so painfully obvious?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's much discussion to be had.
Yeah, everybody's playing for second place right now. Is Leo Gordon going to get second? Like, that's what I want.
Well, it's possible. Let me give you the stat right here. Leading assist throwers at nationals across all of the men's division. Number 1, Jacques Nissen with 38. Number 2, Leo Gordon with 34. Number 3, Calvin Brown with 30. 2 guys on the same team going 1-2 in assists at the tournament. I'm not sure I've ever seen that.
Leo Gordon and Cal Nightingale also 1-3 in goals. Although Gordon was tied with some other people, but I mean, we could be in for this. This is not totally unprecedented, as Cassie Swafford, Paige Soper, also both
That's true.
1-2 the
Listen,
podium once upon a time.
Brown rope-a-doped us. They rope-a-doped us because they were missing guys at all the tournaments this year.
I don't even think that.
Leo was
Look
out.
at how they played
Leo
in the
was
beginning
out
of the
and they were
tournament.
mid. Cal Nightingale's out and they looked mid. They were fine. I could see. I was squinting to see them as a possible semis team. But then when they got all the pieces together and they had their full O-line there, they had the best offense in the country. And that was enough to win a championship. Goodbye. Thanks everybody for playing.
You are both right and wrong. You are right that their offense was so good and that just was like that they set the bar and the conditions helped them do that, but they put the standard out in front of everybody and nobody could catch up. But I don't know. I think if you mentioned like you rerun the sim, I don't know if Browns winning all those. Like I don't know if they rope and doped us. Like they showed us that they still had flaws even at this tournament. Do you really not remember UNC just like running them out of the gym? Like they looked hapless.
I know
for the end of that game.
I know it's crazy.
So they didn't play that way when the hands were all in. You know when the blinds were big and the chips were on the table, they played their best.
Go home. Yep. Somebody asked, who was it? Emmett. No, sorry, I lost it. Steve. Wasn't it windy for Brown too? Lots of turns on break chances for them. Yeah, I mean, their D-line had 12 turns, but their O-line only had 6 turnovers. I mean, they had fewer turnovers than they did the day before against Colorado. There's just you can't win. Cal Poly Slow had 17 O-line turnovers. That tells you the story of the game.
Right. Brown needed somebody to play really efficiently against them because, frankly, if they are not crossing over Jacques and Leo, their D-line offense was not very good. I think that the guys who were supposed to drive that D-line offense kind of disappointed me in that respect at this tournament. And so to me, that's their weak point, is that they have to play Jacques and Leo on defense to get breaks. But nobody was really able to seize on that. So,
well, make sure you check out all of the game recaps from all those semifinals and many of the best games of the tournament over on our YouTube channel. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk a little semi-pro small ball and get you ready for the Western Ultimate League Championship weekend. We'll be right back.
Hey, this is Robin Fennig. One of the only things that we have to bring to an ultimate tournament are our cleats. And every player has a cleat story, right? Mine took place in 2022 when Noise slayed our regional rival Dragon Thrust on Universe Point in a rainy semifinal at the USA Ultimate Club Championships. In my toe case, I didn't have to change a single thing about how I cut to get open for resets. I was so lost in the moment that I didn't even know it was Universe Point when I threw the game-winning huck to Dylan DeClerc. Toke cleats are specifically designed for Ultimate, with a cleat pattern for the game's sharp cuts and a durable, breathable, supportive build to keep your feet and ankles protected and comfortable for longer. That's why I've been using them for over 6 years. They're my best ally in the field. You put your best self on the field, so make sure you're bringing the best with you at tokeultimate.com. That's TOKAY-ultimate.com. Toke, sky the limits.
Heads up, Breakmark now has sublimated 5-panel hat. You can get the hat and their famous reversible free with the purchase of one of their 3-piece team bundles, starting at just $85. Get all the details at breakmark.com.
All right, welcome back to Deep Look. We've got the Western Ultimate League Championship weekend coming up this weekend, June 1st and 2nd, Thornton, Colorado. We've got Utah, the 2 seed out of the Northwest, taking on the Bay Area Falcons, the Southwest top seed. That's the first game on Saturday. And then we've got the San Diego Super Bloom taking on the Colorado Alpenglow. Keith, a little home cooking for Colorado this weekend. You like their chances?
They've looked very impressive. I don't know what to make of this year, to be honest, after this whole season has wrapped up. But I do think that like having the home crowd behind them is going to be great. But so many of the games this year have been so close that it's really hard to know exactly how much stock to put in them. So I like a 2-point game like easily could have swung the other way in some of these cases. So I don't know, but I do like Colorado. I will say I do like Colorado, and I don't know who I'm going to pick, even as we're getting into this right now, but they're firmly in my consideration set right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really tough call. I feel like ultimately, Keith, I still think I'm going to take the team that I feel like is the most talented. And even though they're at the disadvantage of playing against Colorado in Colorado at altitude with home fans, I'm taking San Diego. And I think that they're going to win the title. On the other side, I'm going to go with Bay Area. I think that when they've shown up this season with their best roster and focus, they've looked really good. I won't be shocked if they win the whole thing, but that's what I'm going with. I'm taking the Bay over Utah. I'm taking San Diego over Colorado, and then I got the Super Bloom taking it down. It feels like they're due to win a title.
I wonder. So, is the Bay like, wow, we crushed this year, and somehow we get to the postseason and we drew the team that beat us? Like, we could play San Diego, a team that we've just dogged regularly.
Dogged them. They dogged them last couple weeks ago.
Or we could play the Wild, who actually beat us. So I don't know if they're like in love with this setup.
That was a long time ago, Keith. That was a long time ago.
It was all the way back in week 1. It was in Utah. So I'm going to take the Bay.
Might have been snowing.
They have been very convincing. So I am going to take the Bay despite the head-to-head loss.
I respect it.
But I'm taking Colorado. I've rode for San Diego for a while, but Colorado looks good. Abby Thorpe is a true bona fide MVP quality player. Ari Nelson's been awesome this year for them, and I think I'm going to take Colorado. They're at home. That's enough. Those are all enough pieces of evidence for me to feel like Colorado can pull this off. So I'm taking Colorado against the Bay. But then this is where I don't know what to do. Do I take Colorado at home, or do I take this Bay team that like has put up some really impressive results? Although they've also had some mixed results. I think I am going to take the Falcons to win this as well. But I think we could be if the season itself is an indicator, we could be in for a thriller. So I'm going to take the Falcons to win it all over Colorado. And like, man, how far are we away from the preseason?
I'm very interested to see what happens this weekend, because almost any possible iteration will not be shocking. Right? They've all beaten each other.
I think Utah winning the title is the only thing that would shock me, but it wouldn't I wouldn't be like flabbergasted. I wouldn't be like, wow, Don Colton just did that if Utah won, I guess. But I don't know, man.
Maybe I should rethink Super Bloom only completed 80% of their passes against the Bay Area 2 weeks ago. They gave up 27 break chances. What in the world? I don't know. Something tells me that they're just going to play better. I like the roster a lot, and I'm going to stick with it. I'm sticking with it. I might be wrong, but I'm sticking with it. All right. Quick notes on the UFA. Pretty standard weekend. A lot of expected results. No real surprises. Chicago going 2-0 on their road trip against Houston and Austin. That's pretty solid. I'm impressed. The Growlers played within 3 of Salt Lake in Salt Lake, so at least a little bit of a challenge there. But so far, the good teams keep winning, Keith, and the bad teams are struggling. So pretty expected results to this point in the year.
Yeah, there hasn't been too much to like really shock you. I guess there's still question marks from like after you get off the top line of the divisions. Who's going to be the second team and who's going to be the second and third team in the West. Like that part you get a little mixed up, but otherwise I think it's been pretty much according to script in the UFA.
Some big games coming up in the PUL
this win over New York, obviously.
Yeah, some big games coming up in the PUL this weekend. Strike going at Philly, at New York on back-to-back games. That's basically going to decide whether they make the postseason or not. I would say New York and and Philly are already in the driver's seat given where they are in the standings, but this is kind of a crucial road trip. I mean, if they can go 1-1, I think they've got a chance. Right now, Minnesota's 1-2. Like, maybe if they beat Philly and then they win out, like, there's hope. But that's a really tough road trip to have to go on, and that's probably going to decide the season for them.
Yeah, the PUL, I will say, feels like we pretty much already know what's going on in the postseason. It feels like we've established the haves and the have-nots, and so even with 2 weeks of action left, like this strike weekend is like basically the only thing that I feel like could kind of upset the apple cart.
Torch could upset Shadow. I'm not saying I think it's going to happen.
Would it matter? No. Shadow gets voted in, and like Torch can make the postseason,
move to 3-2. Well, the Shadow won't. The Shadow are going to make the playoffs. That's fine. But the Torch could still take it from Raleigh.
But nobody would think that the Torch are a contender at championship weekend. Like I feel like we have settled into who's for real and who isn't.
The line on that game is like 8.5.
I think that could change our. Minnesota's the only team that can change our minds, and they're 1-2 this year. So like, it's not like Minnesota's been awesome or anything. So if they go out there, they beat the Surge in the gridlock. If they go 1-1, you might start to ask some questions. But I still think they're on the outside looking in of trying to make the postseason.
Yeah.
But they kind of need to win these both, I think.
I agree with you. It's going to be a very tall task. All I'm saying is that the Torch get DC and Raleigh over the next 2 weeks. If they win them both, they're in the playoffs. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm saying they could do that. They could do that.
If you're DC, should you throw that Torch game? Get Raleigh out of here. Get her out. No last year repeat. We'll see you later, Radiants. Think about it.
That'd be wild. Where's that game? That's in Austin. Radiance Torch is in Austin.
For me.
Ooh, spicy. We'll see what happens this weekend. All right. So that is it for our semi-pro small ball. Keith, it's time for a question of the week. What do we got?
All right. This week's question of the week comes in from Thomas Owen in the Discord. Of course, our subscribers can ask us questions in the Discord. Hit up that mailbag channel. Let us know what you're thinking. So, Charlie, we're going to power rank the last 4 champions in each division. Let me run down the list here. It's a pretty diverse set of teams that we've got in the women's division. We've got UNC, also UNC, and then UNC. So we got to pick between which iteration of UNC we got to power rank those. And then in the men's division, we've got UNC. There's UNC. There's also UNC. And then there's Brown. There's Brown. All right, so power rank in each division, your UNCs and also UNC North.
All right. Well, we have to do the kind of annoying thing of like remembering who the hell played on these teams. So remember, the post-COVID 2021 Winter College Championships, teams were allowed to play with their like graduated seniors. So those teams were pretty nasty. So taking a look at the UNC roster, for instance, you had Dawn, Ella Junkst, Grace Connerly, Bridget Meisner, Alex Barnett, Jessica Wu, Sydney Rader as kind of like some of the top contributors. That's a pretty good team, Keith. Now, they ran it back with a lot of those. I mean, I don't even know how many players they lost from that year. I think Bridget was done at that point.
Mm-hmm.
But did she play again in
Bridget
2022?
became a coach.
Bridget became a coach.
Bridget became a coach.
Okay. So I think my power ranking is 2021, number 1, 2023, number 2, 2022, number 3, and this year's team, number 4. I think this year's team is clearly the bottom of the list. It was the grittiest championship that they had to win because their talent level was a lot closer to the rest of the division. And they lost a bunch of games after not losing for many years.
Hmm. 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 I'm with you. I'm with you that this year is at the bottom of the list. I don't know exactly who I would take first overall. I think maybe the 2023 team might be the one that I would take first because
I
you still
respect
got
that.
Ella and X, but you get like breakout Erica Birdsong. Obviously you've got Dawn. Uh, I think
And like
maybe I would
Barnett was
go with
playing
that.
at
You still
the
got Grace,
highest level that we saw
right?
from her whole career.
Yeah, I think that's where I go because you don't because like the 2022 team like technically had Anworth, but they didn't really have Anworth. So yeah, I think I'd go 2023, then the 2021 team that still had Tyler Smith, and Forrest Brooks and Bridget. That yeah, I think that's what I do. So I'll take 2023, then 2021, then 22, then 24.
Okay, how about on the men's side, Keith?
Um, man, uh, in my head, the 2021 team was just absolutely stacked. Right, that's LSB, Dameron, Rutt, Youngst, AD,
Elijah Long.
McKnight, Elijah Law. Yeah. I mean, it's got to be
Did you say
that
Jungst
team's got
yet?
to be, yeah, Youngst. That's
McKnight?
got to be the number one, right? I don't I don't even have to look at the
Yeah,
other rosters to think that
dude, it
that's the
wasn't
best
even
one.
close. It wasn't even close. Like that team stomped
That's
everybody
like
at
an all time
nationals.
great roster.
Yeah, it was like unfair that they got to have their graduated players. It's how it felt. They didn't. The closest game that was 4-goal wins. They destroyed everybody. That's like it looks like Ring.
Yeah, that team was out of control. But after that, it starts to get a lot harder for me after that. Um, yeah, where do I go? Like, I think it's probably either 2022 or 2023, but I don't know in which order. Like 2023, you get to pick up Dylan Hawkins. Uh, you get like a little more involved Josh Singleton. They pick up Lucian Noel.
Rutledge Smith playing at a higher level.
Right. You get a higher level Rut and Ben Dameron. But 2022, you get the talismanic Tommy Williams back. You get John McDonnell. And you get LSB. So I think I take 2022, then 2023, and then 24. So just like straight old to young, but
Yeah, I think I agree. I definitely think this year's Brown team is at the bottom of the list. I mean, they didn't have any kind of the dominance that we saw from UNC over the past few years, and they lost games at nationals.
yeah. Yeah, I definitely think their resume says enough for them.
Yeah, for sure. Dan asks
Do
in
you
the
want to take the
chat as a
question?
bonus question of the week: who would win, 7 Jolie Krebs or 7 Don Coltons?
I love that this is like just like a classic ultimate question. Who would win this?
It has to be
I think
Colton.
there's a compelling argument for both ways. Well, so I think that
The athleticism factor.
you're leveraging more of the Dons who don't have the disc, right? Like Don is a better complementary player, but Jolie is like literally used to getting it every other. So like, can you imagine 2 Jolies throwing it back and forth and the other 5 just kind of like getting out of the way? But I feel like it's going to be hard to score on 7 Dons. And Dawn can boost it, and Dawn's probably better in the air. So I think I would take the Dons. But I get it. Like having somebody who's like used to being the centerpiece as your offensive driver versus Dawn, who's like not really a prime. Like, have you ever seen anybody center to Dawn? Right, like off the pole? No. So like I think that's your main argument for Jolie, but it's gonna be hard to score on 7 Dots.
I just think that they're both great players, and I take nothing away from Jolie because she is so good. It's not just like she's some high volume chucker on a bad team. She's a high volume really talented player as a college player. So I think she's a better thrower than Dawn. So I could see the argument, but I just feel like the athleticism and size factor is too much. Dawn's going to win.
How many Charlies have to be on the field for you to score on 7 Dawns? Is it 10? Is it more than 10? Can 10 Charlies score on 7 Dawns?
I really don't know. How much faster am I than Dawn?
Not.
I don't know. I don't know about that, Keith. I don't know about that.
I know you've got some wheels. I think you need probably like 12 of me to score on 7 Dawns.
All right. I think that does it. Make sure you like our video here if you enjoyed today's show. Make sure you subscribe. We've got more college nationals chatter coming next week. You know that. And don't miss our subscriber bonus segment. It's live in the Discord every week following Deep Look. And you can get into the subscriber Discord with a standard or all access sub. We got so much more content coming your way over the next month. High school national invite, windmills coming up, and then we're on into the club season. So it's never been a better time to get a subscription. Thanks for being with us. And for Keith Rayner, I'm Charlie Eisenhuth saying so long, and we'll talk to you next week right here on Deep Look. We're doing mailbag in the sub bonus, by the way. College Nats mailbag.
Bring the heat.